Bună ziua, doamnelor și domnilor! Bine ați venit la al treilea podcast din seria România încotro, pe care la începutul anului curent, Financial Intelligence și Balkan Development Support au lansat-o. Suntem la un podcast în care vom vorbi, așa cum ne-am propus de la început, cu oameni care în ultimii 30 de ani au făcut ceva deosebit în România, sau cu oameni în privința cărora avem convingerea că vor schimba traiectoria țării în bine în anii care urmează. Mai concret, astăzi vom avea un oaspete, un invitat din Turcia și suntem la cel mai mare și cel mai nou circuit de golf din România, National Golf and Country Club. Teşekkür.
You're welcome.
Stăm de vorbă cu domnul Özkan Baykal, manager general al acestui circuit, și din acest motiv interviul nostru va decurge în limba engleză. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you for having
It's an
me.
honor for me. I would like to start very briefly by explaining the purpose of this podcast. The people who come and accept our invitation to the podcast are people who, in one way or another, throughout the past 30 years, have had a significant contribution to Romania. That's one category. The second category of guests we are having at the podcast are people with respect to we are deeply convinced that they will influence the trajectory Romania will follow also in the future years. I will start by making a confession. It's not the first time we met. We met previously.
Correct.
When I first came here, I was aware of the fact that you definitely fall under the first category, because what we have here, it's an investment of 60 million euros. It's the largest and the newest golf circuit in the country. So I was aware of this fact. But after,
The Nation Golf and Country Club.
yes, exactly. And I was aware of your contribution. Of course, this is an investment made by Mr. Metin Dogan.
Exactly.
Everyone knows and everyone is
Yeah.
grateful for this investment.
Yeah.
But I personally, I'm a team person, and I rely on the team, and I think you as well. We are both aware of the importance of a team whenever a project has to be carried out. So I was saying this is an investment of 60 million euros. It will go up to 100 million euros.
Okay.
But most importantly, we have to pay attention to the people coming here. Businessmen, potential investors, professionals in golf and sports, people who are by any means and by any criteria important. The purpose, so I was saying, the purpose of our podcast is to provide genuine examples to the Romanian society and especially to the young people, because we have expectations from the next generations. As some people say, they will be paying our pensions if we will have pensions anymore. I don't know. Let's go back a little to the moment when we met, when we first met. And I will continue by introducing you to the public. As I was saying, you're the general manager of the National Golf and Country Club. You're also a professional golf player.
Correct.
You're a professional coach, I dare to say, for VIPs. You hold a PhD in applied athletic performance in golf. And you're also an active promoter of the conference between business and sports. If I missed anything, please feel free to add, firstly.
Appreciate it, thank you.
The place we're in, it's a commune close to Bucharest. It's Nicolești commune in the county of Dâmbovița. Please tell us, how did you start this project? Why here? How was it at the beginning? Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and secondly, it's my honor. A very kind words as well from you as well. And I think also we need to have a people like you to go around and actually see those potential opportunity and then spread out the words. And this is what you are doing. I thank you for this as well. Journey. I will start with with your kind words about fitting two categories as a nation golf and country club, and very appreciate your kind words about myself. I think Mr. Metin Doğan, I have to give him very big credit for putting the vision in 2020 when we first met. Something when he set out that I want to build a golf course, I was in shock. I said,
6 years ago?
Like 6 years ago. So I know him for almost 7 years now. We met in Turkey for golf tournaments. We didn't know each other, but we had a very similar story. I was born in Turkey, grew up in Turkey, and then moved to UK and lived there all of my life. And he was same, born in Turkey and then grew up in a younger age. He moved in here, became a very successful person, successful businessman, I would say, and then stopped playing golf 6-7 years ago actually. And then it was a very coincident we met in tournaments. We were in the same town, almost from the same village as well, but we never met. It was mutual connection between us, like a brotherhood. Yes. And then we played some tournaments with some event together, you know, had a very good relationship. And then he invited me here one day, so I came in here to see him. And then out of nowhere he said, I want to build a golf course, and if I buy a land, and would you be able to have a look and see what you think? And then we came in here. This was just farmer's field. It was just nothing in here. It was just like crops.
Piece of land.
It was more, you know, the farmer. There was some mix of some piece of empty land as well as the farmer products. Then he said, you know, would you be able to bring a designer to get this started? I said, are you serious? He says, yeah. I said, this is a great vision, because I know there was no golf course in Bucharest that time. Everyone, all the golfers used to go to Bulgaria, play Plexidama, Thracian Cliff and Lighthouse, and there was an opportunity there, so he saw that. But he was thinking bigger. Like, I was thinking about golf course, but he was thinking bigger. And then when we sit down, put on the paper what his vision is, then I realized this project is going to be amazing.
Was it more related to passion or to business interest?
I think both. I think he was passionate in golf, that first, and then secondly saw the potential as a business for the future. And that's something I agree with him in terms of the potential of Romania for the future. And that was natural connection. Then we got some designer here and there. We developed, but I promised him to come and manage if this will be a successful project and if he wants to do it. Because I will be very proud as from the same city and as a brother, and I did. So he called me one day. We met, and when I came, it wasn't fully open, but we just started the first 9, half of the course, and then we moved on from there. So that was the first kind of me to involve in the project.
Ground point.
But I was here almost every year to come and see, you know, have a chat, and it was good. We took some pictures on the golf course as it was developing. As you know, don't get me wrong, this is a really big investment to have this kind of big scale in Eastern Europe. I think you have to be very brave, and I think I have given them credit for this as well.
For the courage.
Yeah,
I think.
Exactly.
Because it's a bet.
Having the courage is very important, and believe in it. If you have to believe in, you have to do something. You have to believe in. So, he believed in this project, and he did it. So.
Precisely, that is why I want to ask you. Besides the fact that, as we can see, you literally changed the landscape. It's amazing what's here. But what's the vision behind what we see in physical terms? What's the business vision, the golf vision?
The vision of this project is this. So when I give a little bit story of me coming into this area. When I first came, I had a good relation with the Romanian golfers before. I was in Turkey working in a 5-star hotel with a golf course called Regnum Karya. We always thought there was something needed in here for sure. Okay. But it was challenge of the finding that much land, around 75 acres of the land together, or put it together, and then getting all the permission and planning and then designing is such a hard process. And to have that, it was a big challenge, and he managed to do that by working very hard day and night, and he did it. So then from there, it was not only golf course, having a destination that has not only for residents to have a holiday type second home, and have this kind of environment where it's this premium, exclusive area. You can buy a villa or apartment, and then you're in the complex. You can
like the ones we see.
Exactly, anything you want as a country club. So then we put the vision of the event hall, swimming pool, which is bigger than half Olympic size, then the two paddle court, tennis court, football court, basketball court, kids play area, outdoor gym. So it's a bigger complex. Then it's
like a home.
It sounds like a golf, but more than golf. So then the people to come over here for a weekend or a holiday and be able to do a lot of activities, or have the option to do activities, and enjoy obviously the weekend with the family. That was the vision. Then he decided to build 170 villas, 110 apartments, event hall, clubhouse, which means restaurants, golf shop, etc. And then very luxury, very high-tech academy, golf academy, the driver ranch we call that. And then 5-star hotel, which is starting very soon. We have
in an airport, because I know that
airport. That airport, my probably craziest idea, which he thinks that I'm crazy about about the idea. Why not? I think the potential for the future here is great. This can expand to next level, to have proper kind of new city like residents in the surroundings. Then the schools, possibly hospital, shopping mall. Then you can build more other things.
I do understand now that you're talking about providing the infrastructure for a way of life, actually.
Yeah, I think you are kind of creating an environment. It's a new beginning, a new life, with a new kind of sports, which is, I think, in the country is really growing, and we are happy for this as well. But again, we touch in tourism and more kind of economic growth, and that's another, another kind of key points for us to have in behind, grow the economy in the country.
With respect to the prospects of growing the economy and the business plan, of course, how much is the international target of the circuit, and how much is the domestic target?
Yeah, equally same, I would say, but what we're looking at right now, so we have 5 villas as accommodation. We can host 30 people, and we are now building the hotel, which is going to be 120 rooms, and that's going to be obviously expanding the business a lot. What we are looking for is in the golfing destination, you have few countries you can count for European golfers to go and enjoy themselves.
Okay.
Number 1 is Spain, then Turkey, then Portugal, Turkey, and then you're looking for Greece and Dubai, so Middle East. Spain, the golf tourism for a year is $12.5 billion. And Turkey, which is smaller with the golf complex, we have about 20 golf courses there. Spain has more, 2.5 billion. Only for, I'm talking about the golf tourism, because the whole tourism is about $61 billion a year. So if you look at this number, it's a great business to have, great income to have as a country. Yeah. So for us, it's not golf in the country or the tourism in the country. It's a national, local, always going to be that, and we will have that. That will have some impact. But international has the biggest impact. International, I see this way. So when you are organizing, or when you have a group of people come from Europe or UK, they have to buy flight, right? So they have to buy flight. Then they pay in the flights, their golf bag, logo user, etc. Arriving the airport, buying drinks and coffees and etc. Food, having the taxi, coming over here, going to restaurant, playing golf, going out, doing activity in thermal here and there. So you are already sourcing the income by that. So if you have that volume of traffic, I mean, to have like Spain and Turkey is impossible right now, but it can be. So have that traffic, that's going to boost the economy for sure, and that's what we are looking for. So aiming to target these people, especially in the season and summertime, to come over here, enjoy that, because most of the golfers are choosing very much like high-end golf courses or facilities to come, which we have right now, and then also explore the culture of the country and different activities. And I think the Romanian Bucharest has so much to offer. We are putting a lot of things in packages to have them this attraction. One of them is, have a cultural visit like the palace, city, and the history and about the political history of the Ceausescu and Dracula, etc. Then the other activities like how nice the restaurants around here and a restaurant, the nightclubs, and then you have the kind of thermal, which I think is a lovely place to have. There's more, you can expand to Bryce show, closure, etc. But that will be the key point for us to bring the people in the country. And the country has that potential, and potential has to grow, and it will grow.
But I must tell you that I like the broader frame in which you're putting your circuit, because indeed it matters. And I think from Romania's perspective, the biggest credit which has to be given to National Golf and Country Club is that you literally put Romania on the map of this world's map of golfing.
I think that's a very good point. I don't want to be big-headed, but this complex, biggest golfing complex in Eastern Europe by far, and probably going to be one of the best. It will be in top 10 probably in Europe as well. Because what we are providing here, 18-hole championship golf courses, and the design, the quality of the grass and the greens, the maintenance is a different level. So we host international events in here. We had last 2 years we had quite a few events, but amateur championship, BMW Golf Cup, Turkish Airlines Golf Cup, and we had the DP World's sponsor Romanian Open Championship, which there were 20 international professionals came and play, and it's growing and growing. We had the World Corporate Golfers Championship this year. We had the first time we hosted in here, and it's growing, which is promising. And that this is one of the subjects we talk about, how much having the championship golf course influence the economy or the business. So that's already attracting international level of the tournaments. Now, plus beyond that, we have a restaurant is fantastic, bar, say in pro shop. We have the golf shop, the golf in attire. We have some exclusive club, exclusive wear in the attire that no one has in probably Eastern Europe. And beside that, we have a golf academy, the TrackMan technology, where you hit the ball and you can see exactly where your ball goes in the radar, the tracing technology. It gives you all the technical information about your golf ball flight, your swing, how you hit it in, how much ball goes further, right, left, and spins. So all those information you gain, then you improve your game. Plus, then we have a resort-type swimming pool, which is fantastic. And then we're talking about all the country club facilities, basketball, football, 2 paddle courts, outdoor gym, running track, kids play area. If you're looking at the internationals coming here with their family, if husband plays golf, the family has so much things to do. And this is something very, I think for me is like...
What I would like to point out...
Taking points.
What I would like to point out for the people who are watching us is that this whole flow of money, because it's basically a flow of money, will not only concern the circuit itself, but as you well said, different sectors in Bucharest and throughout Romania's economy. So I think once this investment will be completed, it will function as an engine for economic development,
100%.
which is very, very important, especially nowadays.
Yeah, we look at the statistics. We look at the statistics. I mean, you can see from the Spain, Turkey, Greece, and Portugal, all the numbers it tells you. The Romania has so much potential. I mean, I was talking about this before, but Romania is a new destination that's not been discovered by the golfers, the golfing world. And I think this is the starting point for us. Once we get the right marketing out there and get them group of people from each country to come and see the facility and hear what we have and what we provide and how lovely people are in here. They're actually fantastic, by the way. And then the service we have and the quality we have, and it will develop itself. And I see that in the future we will have more golf courses around Bucharest. That can happen, and it will happen.
You said one thing, you just said one thing which is so important, but I'm afraid here in Romania we're not enough aware of. it's been more than 35 years since, as you know, the communist regime fell. But still, for the international environment, business environment, Romania is a new destination, as you said. And this particular thing, it's something I have seen, I have heard in many places abroad, and I wish there were more awareness on this particular feature of the current state in Romania, that we are being seen, we are being regarded as a new destination. This is very important because I believe we have to seize the moment.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I give you an example. I work for a long time in the business, both coaching, managing the academy, running operation management, golf management, club management, and the general manager. I worked 5 different countries. Most of my time in the UK, but I worked in Dubai, again very high-end golf courses as well, and I worked in Turkey, which is one of the best golf course and hotel. It's called Regnum Karya. 1 year there, and then 1 year in Monaco. I worked in a place where the luxuries are, and then 1 year in Saudi Arabia, which is again very big golfing complex, a good project. We were very successful there, and they are putting a lot of money in there by the sea. You know what you see in the golfer world, we have a lot of connection with thousands and thousands of 10,000 of people. So as a professional, as a PGA professional, you have PGA professionals around that. You have the community, the groups, and etc. Plus the golfers, and then the greenkeeper association, and then club management. So talking to everybody and listening to what they are saying as a destination where they are going. They've been going the same destination over and over again. So they need to explore new destination, and Romania has that. Why? So beside the cultural and all the facilities we have in the country, in Bucharest, but I think something very unique, I have to say this, being in 5 different countries, most of them are super safe, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Monaco. Before I moved in here, I was in London with my friends, so I said, goodbye, I'm going to be working in Bucharest, I'm going to Romania. And then my friends with his English accent, the first reaction was, Romania? Are you mad, mate? What are you doing in Romania? So for them, as a first impression, that Romania not safe. This is how they see it.
Although it's a safe country.
This is how they see it. But I can say this very confidently. Romania is one of the safest countries. Bucharest, one of the safest city in the world. Much safer than Istanbul, much safer than London, much safer than Paris. I can confidently say that, not because I'm living in here, because I've seen it. That's number one. Number two, the people are here absolutely fantastic. They are unreal. Of course, there's a connection with me being Turkish, obviously originally Turkish, and then have the very similar culture, and there's some influence in that.
Deeply influenced.
But looking objectively from outside, people are here welcoming, super nice. They can't do enough, and especially for the foreigners, they are like Turkish people. They welcome them. They're very nice to them. They can't do enough. Always helpful. And I think this is something European has to see that. Of course, other countries also has that, but Romania has something on top. And this has to be, I think, another extra potential for Romania to grow the economy by, obviously, for us to develop business such as like golf or any other sports or the complex or hotel or destination, and the European will attract in here. We are unfortunately in the world economy right now, or the situation we have in the world with the wars and everything else, it will stop somehow, sometime, and that's where we're going to see the potential in the country growing so fast.
I must confess that I'm delighted by the way our talk is going on, because I have the feeling that we are delivering again a real business lesson. The previous podcast we had was with Global Vision, and I had the same feeling that we are not talking about some things and just that, we are delivering a genuine business lesson. And I have the same feeling with you right now, which makes me remember one particular thing that we have talked about when we first met. The potential of Romania and the relation between this potential and education and economic development. Please, because I was deeply impressed by your, how to put it, your affinity towards education. when we first met, Mr. Özkan stressed out very, very much on the importance of education with respect to economic development. And this is very important. Please explain.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and I can talk to you for an hour and hours. I mean, I was a sports teacher in school in UK for 6-7 years. I worked in schools as a sports teacher before I turned to professional golfer, and then I did I studied 2 universities. Second university were about the golf, called PGA qualifications. And that time, you know, I was always keen about education, but we have to realize that the education is not only in the schools. The education out there in the life skills is more important. Of course, schools is important. I'm a school teacher. I was a school teacher for 6-7 years before I turned professional.
Yeah.
And then I obviously gave up the school job, and then did some coaching, then management, etc. But the point I'm making here is like the life skills you teach to younger generation is more important than what you do in school. Of course, it's important. I'm saying that in school, education is very important. And you don't only teach that life skills to younger generation. You teach to any age, from 0 to 80, 90. The golf has that.
I was about to ask you.
Not as its only sport, as a business as well. So I can give you so much a kind of insight of golf benefits as education from A to Z. We know that golf has a kind of an area where you have rules and etiquette, and that etiquette is, we call that gentleman's game etiquette, which means like not gender wise, it's mean like how well mannered you should have, how much respect you should show to people or other players,
and fair play,
exactly, to be a golfer, and that's there. Then benefit starts. So one of the most important for me is being respectful to others and fair to other people, and it's very important. And the politeness when you say welcome people and then thank you for the game and end of the rounds, and then you're looking at for other benefits. You're socializing with people. You are in the environment, super nature, in the green grass all day. For 5 hours it takes to play golf, and you are in the nature, such a quiet and relaxing. Then your stress goes away by just walking on the golf course, and you always meet with the people that in a good position or well educated, and that really influences. And you play with every week or every day with some different people, random, both local or international. So then, by talking to those people, you gain more experience, more education. Golf has a lot of health benefits, that's for sure. You know, we talk about you walking about exercise. You walk about 7 miles, 7,000 meters. Plus, you're making a lot of walking around it with the shot to shot. It depends how well you play. Then you make about 14,000 steps. That's number one for your heart, for your blood circulation is fantastic. Fresh air for your lungs is amazing. And then you're looking for the vision. You follow the ball from 0 to 200 meters. That's literally exercise your eye lenses, and your eyes become stronger. And then you're looking at for the concentration, how you concentrate, how you focus. And golf has a sport that so much other aspects as well. Like one of them, and I always mention this to people, I said, control your anger, control your emotion. The golf is something teaches you. That's what golf has. Because more you get angry, the worse it becomes. So then you learn how to control it, because if you're not hitting the ball well and you're getting angry, you cannot improve. Unless you step back, think, go through the process, what I am doing wrong. Then you find the solution. And then you become calm, then to understand the only way I can solve this is to calm down. So then you're managing your anger. And this is very important for me. There are millions of them I can explain to you about the golf benefits. The life skills is important. This is what you learn, the life skills. Life skills about yourself, disciplining yourself. Because golf, you have to be disciplined. You have to write the right number, right score. You have to respect others. You have to repair the grass. And you have to think about somebody else going to use after me. So you're thinking about the community behind, the people behind. So these life skills is teaching you something you cannot learn in school. So,
bearing in mind what you just said, you know, I've told you that our main concern with the podcast is to provide role models for the society, especially for the young people. And taking into consideration the educational dimension of golf. Please tell me, how can we take your example, the way you built your career, the way you conduct the mixture between sports and business, and present all this, the phenomenon of golf, as a model, as an example to young people especially?
We are doing some programs for that. So, for example, I'll give you a kind of what we are doing right now and what we need to do as a country.
Yeah.
So we developed an academy for juniors. So we're trying to get the children to come and learn golf. We also went to the schools in kind of after school education to teach them, kind of get them to try the golf. What's the golf about? And then we brought them over here. We also have some after school club. One of the American school coming over here every Wednesday for the golf lessons. Plus, we are kind of encouraging ladies to take part, to increase that number as well, because always been the men is more number-wise more than ladies, and we're trying to get more ladies in. I don't think we can equal it, but we can increase that number. So this is something we do. We promote. We go on some of the fair and events. We're just going to show them with a plastic golf ball, the golf club, to get them to have a taste of it and bring them over here. That's for the golf sport education we have to increase. Then plus, we're talking about the local sports, local authority sports. This sport, unfortunately, hasn't been done in a way that we want or been communicated, and that's very important. Number one, the Ministry of the Sports.
Yeah.
Number two, education of the Ministry of Education. And then number three, I would say the tourism. Ministry of Tourism is very important, because this business is not for the individual, this business is for the whole country. This is how you should say it. It's not Metin Doğan's business, it's a whole Romanian business. We are encouraging for outdoors to come over here, the internationals to come over here. So we need promotion from the Ministry of Tourism. We need help from the Ministry of Education to provide some sort of scheme that the children can come and learn in here. We need some support from the Ministry of Sports or sport complexes, sport areas, to promote ourselves, get them to try in here, put into association. So this kind of development hasn't been done by the local authority, and I think we are doing our part. We are providing some school sessions for the children in local area,
nice.
and in terms of the business, we are not only doing the job in here or providing the service, we actually educating all the local people in here. Most of our staff, the employees, are local people, so they came from zero to hero because they had no golf business in the country, and they had no education for this. We had to train them. We put so much effort in each department, in each area. Maintain the green grass 1 year is very expensive, around it costs between 500 to 1 million euro, and the machinery you have there is super expensive, each of them 150,000 euros. And to educate them to use it, train them to learn it, how to do it, and then look up the golf courses, it's a different matter, because there is so much scientific work behind this, so much expertise behind it about the grass type, the soil type, and the testing, and the fertilizing, pesticides, and all this has to be in a measurable, has to be measurable scale, that you have expertise to control that and know that and how to apply. So all of those things is educating local people.
But how accessible is golf for young
to
people?
Come and play? That's a very good question. What if it wasn't accessible? Well, what we have to do? Let's say it's not accessible. I'm not saying it's not accessible, but let's say it's not accessible. What we have to do as a public, as a member of the community, we have to do something.
First of all, I would say, sorry, please.
So what we have to do, okay, as a parents, you can only do so much, but as a local authority, you can do so much. We are here to host you. We don't expect money. We expect them to come and try, learn, and grow the game. And this is something I look for as well, potential for the younger generation to become a future golfers, future professional, and have the Romanian flag in their shoulder, in their chest. See them one day happen in the professional league.
No, I was thinking maybe it's a problem of awareness, because I think golf is rather new for Romania, and I doubt that the Romanian authorities are aware of its importance. That's why
I think that's a very good point. They might be aware of what we have in here, that's for sure, but maybe they're not aware of how important this is for children's future, their lives, because we're talking about education. And then if they realize how important this is, then they can put a kind of a program in place.
yeah, well,
Then
exactly.
make the awareness bigger. How? A lot of things you can do as education, as a Ministry of Education or the association. You can promote every school. You can get them, all the children, all the parents to know by the TV, media, newsletter, email to parents. You can do a lot of things, and that's easily done. Same for the Ministry of Sports, and combine two sports together. Maybe do, I don't know, small local winter Olympic, summer Olympic. There's something involved that, and we are here to help and support.
I guess there's a perception which still lingers that golf is for rich people and not our concern. But indeed, this has to be changed. Not only it can be changed, but it has to be changed.
There are facts. Golf always been rich people's sport, like polo.
Yeah.
Why? Because expensive. Maintenance is very expensive, and all the facilities to keep it going, running the business is very expensive. So therefore, the fees are expensive. But in this country, it's still not expensive. So if you go to Dubai, you can play around for $400. Here you can play for 70 euros.
Oh.
Yeah, example. If you go to Dubai or US or some of the golf courses in the UK, the membership starts 5,000, 6,000 euros to start. Some of them over crazy, 100,000 euros a year. So here, 2,000, 2,500 euros, it's not very expensive.
So
you're looking for, yes,
to remain.
We have to.
Yeah.
In a complex like this, we should be starting from 5,000, but we haven't. Because we know it's not a realistic number for attracting people, so we are attracting the people as well. So, of course, if someone earning minimum wage, it's impossible for them to come and learn golf and play regularly. It's difficult, and that's where we're looking for the talent to association, the local authority to do some sport and do some some program to get them to try at least and see the potential if it's there, to help them to grow and become a professional golfer. Yes, yet hate to say it, it's still rich people's sport, because the other expenses there. Traveling to here, you have to spend all day in here, then the food and drink in the restaurants, buying the golf equipment. It's kind of extra expenditure you have to have.
But you just have provided the solution for this.
Yeah.
Speaking, the solution being a partnership with the ministries involved in.
Yeah, and this is something we want to do. We want to help, for example, doctors, teachers, police officers, to come have a program in here, not a full price, maybe 50%, maybe 25%, in order to get, because their salary is not the businessman, they get 100,000 euros a month, but they can also come and try and have the enjoyment. And by doing this, you grow in the game, then you will open more opportunities, more golf courses, then you will have kind of steady price for the golf expenditure.
I think we're talking actually about the aggregation effect golf has upon the economy, upon the society. And going back to rich people, we have already talked about this. We know that the rich people are coming here. We know that the business arrangements are being made while playing golf, networking and so on. But please explain more a little bit the connection between golf and business world, because it's important, and I think for Romania it's important to take advantage of this potential and the opportunity you're providing.
Yeah, I mean, this is very probably the fair point what you mentioned. Okay, if you look at for someone to play golf, you'll be looking around 400, 500 euros a month. They have to be spent money to play golf.
Yeah.
Okay, so for investors, these guys are rich. They can pay. They don't have to worry about the membership or pay. So we need to attract them. Why? Because that creates other opportunities. In the golf course, you have a hub. It's called a business hub, right?
Yeah.
So in the golf course, you meet someone in different industry with a big money. You have a different business. So you can link them together, do something more extraordinary. You can do something else. So you can create more opportunity. Then plus you have the international. When someone comes and stays in a hotel with a family and they see what we have, what country offer, they can start thinking about, I can actually open one manufacturer in here, because people are working hard. The cost is labor a lot cheaper than England or US. So I can open offices in here. Romanian people are great in technology and IT, so I can actually do my head office in here or one of the branch in here. So then you will create more businesses. So the Gulf as a hub, you will have this network and connection, and it will create good opportunities.
You made me curious about one thing. Speaking of the relation with the Romanian authorities, do you have, I don't know, regular guests among the Romanian officials here?
No, I think this is the point I'm trying to make. I mean, we have some send email or have a talk, especially I went to Expo Center for Tourism Fair and I met some of the representatives there and had a communication, but I think it needs to be taking this more seriously, how much this is going to affect the country's economy and the future. We talk about so many perspectives of this business and also as a sports and education. So this has to be aware and then come and search, and there should be a team for looking for the opportunity, looking for the ideas to come over here. If they come over here, we'll welcome them.
And working with them.
And then we working with them. We will say what we need, what can we do together. Let's sit down and say, okay, I will provide free of charge. What can you provide? As an example, right? And I can create you an environment free of charge for the golf academy, golf coaches, this and that, plus the water and food, whatever I can. What can you do? So number one thing is what you just mentioned beautifully, awareness. Let's get this awareness, do your site, and then the other things you can come in place, other programs. This is what we need. We need them to come, hello, who are you? What are you doing in this country? What's this new project? What's this on the map? I've seen a lot of green places, some buildings going on. Let's come and ask a question. What are you doing in here?
Then, I don't know, could you and would you host a business forum here, for instance?
Yeah, we can do business forum, we can do other activities, we can do international event, we can do diplomatic event. We are doing actually one diplomatic tournament next month. So we are inviting a lot of diplomats that in golf. All the ambassadors, MPs, from not only from the Bucharest or the country, from the international as well. So a lot of invitations being sent to.
Exquisite.
Yeah, and that's going to be obviously put the Romania on a different map.
Let me go back to your personal history because I'm really curious about this. Why have you chosen golf over other sports?
Yeah, it's a good. It's a big story I can tell, but sport has always been my passion. Since I was little, playing football, that's how I started. And then I was interested in any other sports, volleyball, basketball, etc. And running. I was in athletic as well, so I was quite enthusiastic about it. And then I studied in Turkey, my first university for physical education and sports. 4 years of education, become a teacher, and then I moved to UK. I actually worked in the 5-star hotels for a bit for the entertainment businesses, and then moved to UK. And I was a sports teacher there. It's called physical education and sport teacher in schools, both primary school, junior school, and also high school. And I did all sorts of sports, and I love sports. Sports is my life, and I do exercise every day if I can. But the golf was one of the sports I never thought I would play, because I always thought that is boring for old people, for retired people, so to say. This is how I looked at. And I was playing football, it's called Sunday League in the UK, with my friends where I live in Warwickshire. And they always goes to golf after football. And I was like, no, mate, it's not for me. So I go back home. And one day, one of the guys who plays football with us, he had a birthday, and he had some arrangement at the golf course. He says, you have to come, you have to. So we have to go. So we went there in the golf course with a food and beverage, and then we went to this academy, driver range, where you hit the ball. And, he said, look, you got to try this. This is how you hold it. So this is how you stand, and this is how you swing the club. So I took the club and hit the one shot. It went perfect up in there. It went quite long as well, actually. And the second one, same. So he was not convinced that I never played in my life, never touched a golf club. And then I become, this is easy. And then I put the third ball on the floor and trying to hit it, I missed it. And then the fourth time I said, how come I just hit a 2 great shot? Now I'm missing the ball. That time, golf got me in. And then I more into like, I need to learn this.
So actually life
Yeah,
brought you to golf.
It did actually. And then I started playing the golf, then suddenly realized all the sports I done, this is one of the most technical sports ever. Because you have a small ball and a small club head, you swing the club from an angle from the top of your head to the ground with 100 miles an hour and trying to make a perfect connection to get the ball going up and there, up in there and straight as well. And it's very challenging. And every single time, you don't do it one time, you do it for 70, 80 times. So, and that time, it really got me in. The more I got on the golf course and realized with the tennis or any other sports, we are in the square, in an area, let's say in 100 square meters or whatever, the 50 square meters for tennis, 40. So you are in the area, you're not going anywhere else, right? Playing football, basketball. But on the golf course, you're on a field with 55 acres and they are not flat.
Yeah.
There are all sorts of challenges, and that got me in more. That's most important thing is the challenge. So I like to have a challenge. Yeah. The second thing that we talk about the benefits, then more it adds to it. Walking in the nature, the exercise, the society, the community you have, the socializing you have, and all the other things you learn on the top. Then the network and this and that changed my life.
It's also beautiful because as we can see, what we have here is pure beauty. It's this place in particular makes me feel come back every time. And I wanted to ask you, what's the current status of the project, of the circuit, and what's the perspective also? Yeah,
so we have a restaurant, event hall, and swimming pool as well. So
already in
event
place.
hall hosts 250 people, up to 300 inside sitting. We can do weddings, corporate events, conferences, business forums, and etc. And weddings, etc. So we also have 170 villas in project, and 50 of them has been built and sold. We have 123 left we are building right now, and 50 of them has already started. You see on the construction in the middle of the golf course, and we have 3 blocks of apartment. One of them has been done with 35 flats. We have 2 more to come, and then we have 120 rooms of the 5-star hotel coming in place. This is another one. We look to get it started very soon. And then you have 18-hole golf course with the academy. But we also have now this year, opening next week, indoor golf. Indoor golf, we have on the restaurant, you have 2 simulators where you hit the ball on the screen and it shows you where the ball goes. You like playing the golf course. You like in the simulator you play in the golf course. You can play any golf course in the world. You can just put the name of the golf and then play with your friends. And you can do lessons as well. So for the bad weather, cold weather, or the summer too hot, you can actually use that area as well. So everything is set up.
But I can understand that it's quite more to come.
Yeah, we are continuously developing. So development doesn't affect the golf or the business we do or the events we do because they're on the site.
Yeah.
And we block that areas anyway. So they are building the construction for the villas edge of the golf course. And then we have the paddle court and tennis court. They're almost finishing now. We have the products coming next week. They'll be installed. The only things we're going to have to be looking at the hotel. That's going to be the bigger project. Again, it's not going to affect our business. It's continuously running. We had a swimming pool in here open for more than a year now. We had so many guests coming weekends, enjoying themselves. It's infinity pool, looking over the lake on the golf course, relaxing. Like you say, whoever comes in here wants to come again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's relaxation. You get the fine. I kind of say that it's a connection to nature. You have this connection to nature. They are fully open space. There's no traffic. There's no building. There's nothing. There's only nature, the forest, and the green grass.
You find yourself,
Absolutely.
Rediscovering yourself. I'm going back to your personal example because I like it.
Appreciate it.
You, as a professional golfer, I think you belong to a world, an exquisite world, which implies pretty much international mobility. But still, you have invested a lot of time and effort here. How you keep equilibrium between this?
Yeah, it's not an easy. I mean, I had the question from my friends and families and other people as well, and also people from here. Why Romania? I mean, because I have opportunity from other education and experience I have to work, which I worked in many exotic destinations. I could go and work there, but that's That's not, everything is not about the beauty, or location, or the money, or the title. I'm not into this. I'm into this success and change people's life. If I can change people's life, that's more important for me. I'm not a kind of person focused on these words. I'm after something bigger, the other words. So for me, what I trying to create in here, especially with the staff and employees, to grow them in their career, what we do, and also for the golfers, to provide them what we have and help them. I have teaching a lot of people in here. They were like in their life on the edge. Their life has changed. So here in this is completely, rewarding, and I love that. So I have people had an emotional breakdown and start to golf, change all their lives. I have people with the work stress every day, and they say they never have time to go and do gym. They have a big belly now, and they don't do any other exercise. So golf is an area, sports. You can just go and walk for 7 miles as we talk. You can step 14,000. You can still put energy, but you're in an environment you are distressing yourself. So for that reason, and I'm very, very much enjoying seeing the rewards, which is making things successful, not myself, making the people to become success, business and the environment and the community.
I believe what you just said opens a new chapter, and I will keep this new chapter for a second edition of our podcast.
You're very clever. You're trying to grab another.
You made me saw something right now.
More than welcome.
You made me saw something about you right now. And I'll be back here in, 1 year or 2 years.
Anytime.
And I will ask you to explore and go together through what you just said. Success, involvement for others, giving, basically, teaching, and changing lives.
Yeah, I know. I always think this is the word I've been praising or consulting. I've been consulting a lot of people in the businesses as professionals as well. I've been consulting. I was a consultant for the PGA professionals, assistant professional in university in the UK. 250 people all around the world, most of them British. And I still have a lot of people, a lot of businesses, and golf federations. I'm still working with the Ukrainian Golf Federation. So my always advice has been people is this: the knowledge is the most important part of the life. You have to have it, knowledge, beside have. But knowledge only grows. You have to grow that. Only grows by sharing.
I totally relate.
If you don't share, you will never grow. Yeah. So whatever God has given you opportunity to learn, study 2 university, master's degree, plus the PhD, plus other education you don't know, the TPI, the fitness and personal training and this and that, all those things, life skill, life coaching, etc. So all those things, beside all of this, plus the seminar. And I say, and nutrition as well, I have to share what I have. Because God choosing me to have this, give me the opportunity, now I have to give that opportunity and help other people to learn that. By doing so, by sharing my knowledge, I also grow. So I don't hide anything whatsoever.
Then even more, thank you for choosing Romania.
You're welcome.
Thank you for this interview. It's been a delight and an honor. Teşekkür.
Thank you very much. Multimask. I will try to learn some more words in Romanian.
In 2 years from now, we'll see.
Yeah, I love it actually. It's like Chef has been. I say people the way they react, and I love it. I'm trying to learn a bit, but super busy. I say people I work 8 days a week, not 7. So it's very difficult. It might not look from outside. We don't do too much, but we have so much technical work behind it. And this is the thing. Like the way I work in here to kind of getting the business going up, I'm also helping other areas as well, not just my business or our business in here. And that's the focus.
Teşekkür.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
My pleasure.
Thank you.